Welcome back, everyone, to the Goonerverse, not just the Goonerverse podcast, but actually the first time the channel has taken that name. I was going to wait a little bit longer, but I'm impatient. So here we go. The Goonerverse is now the name of the channel. And as always, we're super excited about some amazing guests. The host of one of the biggest Arsenal podcasts, if not the biggest, Arsenal Vision, it is Elliot. Welcome, Elliot, to the Goonerverse.
Welcome,
it's
mate.
Great to have you on. It's a round of applause. How are you, mate?
I mean, thanks for having me on. I hope that my appearance doesn't make this the first and last episode of the Goonerverse, but I'll see what I can do.
Honestly, I'm sure the comments will show a lot of love for you. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. And Lee Judges, who bullies me every Forever Arsenal podcast. I don't know why I put myself through an extra hour of you this week. But you know what people don't know? You're actually bloody lovely, and I love you to bits. So it's great to have you on too.
We'll give him a clap. Very much, what can I say, what can I say? It's an honour to be on the first one, and be asked to be on the first one. Even though I have been told that other people let you down, I'm honoured to be here,
With respect, it's not the first one. This is episode 4. So
how is it?
Under the branding, under the Goonerverse brand.
Of the new channel, of the new name, should I say.
That's the one. But no, good to have you, mate. Good to have you. And of course, with Harry Kane's recent performances, we had to get Harry Kane's biggest fan on to actually be talking about some of that. But of course, we'll talk about the Euros from an Arsenal perspective. And Sharoy, pleasure seeing you again, mate. How are you?
Oh, lovely to be here, man. Had England getting knocked out of the Euros, woke up, no bank holiday, rain was pouring. It's been a wonderful Monday. Yeah, can't complain. At least I got Lee to brighten up my evening.
Did we expect any different, by the way?
Yes, we did.
There came a point where I just thought they've been so bad throughout this tournament and found a way. After the pain of the last tournament, I almost convinced myself that it was written for England to win. Obviously, I'm a mug, and it was not written for England to win at all, looking at the way that Spain played. But yeah, I expected more. I know Lee definitely wanted England to win for his own personal reason.
So Elliot, basically, we have a Forever Arsenal sweepstake, and I had Spain and he had England, and it was a real derby between us. And the thing is, I got caught up in it. I keep saying to people, being half Italian and being so invested in Arsenal, I don't really get the same energy for England that I do Arsenal. I just can't bring myself to. I'll never celebrate. I'm sure I'll celebrate the opening goal on the opening day if we score it more than I will sort of most of England's goals at this Euros even. But I did get caught up in it. When I saw Carvajal with this, I thought, you get him. Didn't quite happen.
Yeah. Honestly, it's one of those things for me where I sort of allowed myself to fool myself into being really into it. And literally the minute it ended, I was like, I don't actually think I cared about that at all. It's just something to do in June in the early part of July. And I was like, now watch Manchester United lose a preseason game and that'll be just as entertaining. So,
you found a way to get it in. You found a way to get it in.
Oh, yeah.
Just 3 minutes. What a guy.
I'd have brought it up. So fair. Right. Let's just tell the viewers, today, lots to talk about as always. Summer's been a bit slow for Arsenal, but in fairness, there have been stories, there's been things going on and things have been picking up. We're signing 7 goalkeepers, which is great. I'm glad we're addressing that. We'll get to transfer stuff. First, I think we look back at the Euros, Saka, Rice, once again getting the most unnecessary criticism. We'll discuss that. Going to look ahead to Mikel Merino, what's going on there, because things are picking up there. And then a little bit of other stuff around pre-season transfers, Arteta doing a big interview. So let's get straight into it with the Euros. And Elliot, I'll kind of get your take first, because while I say I can disconnect myself from England, I watch it with a bias of I really want Rice and Saka to do well, and I'm English, so I'm willing to do well from that perspective. Can you believe some of the criticism that's coming out for their performances? Van der Vaart was his first name. Is it Raphael Van der Vaart?
Yeah.
The artist that used to be Van der Vaart. Have you seen him? Makes me look like I'm still in shape. What's going on there?
I just saw a picture, to be fair, but he's quite a critical pundit, but he had quite a bit to say about Declan Rice. He wasn't the only one. Paul Scholes. Look, I'm not saying Declan Rice had his best Euros ever, or best 4 weeks of football ever. But my word, without him, I think England would have been in a lot of trouble. How did you watch it? Just from just the Arsenal perspective, what do you make of the criticism?
Well, first of all, like, it's always hard when a former Spurs player criticizes Arsenal players. Like, you just don't know if there's a little bit of that in there, that tribalism, and who could blame him? I mean, I think we'd all have that sort of instinct. I do think that the criticism for Rice is more of a symptomatic of the problem with England in general, which is just the lack of a midfield that really makes sense from a roles standpoint. I don't think Jude Bellingham is a midfielder in the truest sense. Kobe Minu, whatever you make of his talent, and I think he has a precocious talent, is not a ball progressor. He's not a primary ball progressor in my view, and he lacks athleticism. So you have Declan Rice having to be both the primary ball progressor and cover all the ground. I think we saw at Arsenal that Rice is best when he has someone else who can be a primary ball progressor with him, like a Jorginho, right? Or whether you like the player or not, a Zinchenko, just in terms of clarifying for Rice what he can do. And I think to some extent, it's why he evolved into more of a 6-8 role for us, where he could get forward and destroy things and not have that primary progression role. So the criticism for Rice, I think, is fair only in the sense that the whole England midfield never looked like it made a lot of sense to me. Right out of the blocks, you have Trent at midfield, didn't work, abandoned it immediately, and brings in a teenager to try to fix what's broken. So that makes sense to me, even if I think Rice was clearly the best of a group that didn't work. Saka criticism doesn't make any sense to me, other than I just think our analysis of sport is always at some level reduced to tribalism at its most base level. And you watch some of the media in England and you have like Michael Richards saying Foden's the best player when clearly like he's really struggling to find his role. And it's all just down to what club you support at some level, right? So I do think too, you look at the fluency of a Spain team and how it all works together, and it becomes less about individuals. In an England team that was so disjointed, because the system is so hard to identify, you wind up pointing to individuals because it's a system that begs individuals to express themselves in a moment of brilliance as opposed to being lifted up by the collective. And so if the collective can't lift you up, what are you left with? You're left to analyze individuals and talk about names, and then you're back in the tribalism world. So long answer there, but I think Rice, I get it, because midfield just never worked. The Saka thing just feels tribalist.
Elliot, I think your point is completely proven by Zubamendi's second half. He came in, and I know England fans, I was one of them, was going, Rodri, who I think's got a good shout for Ballon d'Or, and we know what he's been doing the last few years, and Spain didn't skip a beat, or dare I say they got better. Like, you know, that's what a good system does. It means someone like Jorginho that struggled to get the credit he deserved at Chelsea, at times was brilliant, at times his what's the word, deficiencies were exposed by the teams. He comes to Arsenal. I think if he didn't have that mistake against Tottenham in the North London derby, people would say he's been actually a flawless player for us. I don't think he's done anything wrong. And that's what a good system can do for a player. And one of the people you picked out, Lee, just before we were about to hit record was Zubamendi and the performance he had. And, Declan Rice struggles for England, but again, didn't skip a beat for Arsenal. He was superb. He was just constantly like 50, 60, 70% of matches. He was up there for man of the match. Big performances in big games for us. And it annoys me that people see a team that got the most wins in their Premier League history, 89 points on the board, went toe-to-toe with Pep Guardiola, Mikel Arteta, one of the most highly rated managers in the world now, despite having not lifted a trophy since the FA Cup in 2020. And people think, well, Rice might be the problem and not Southgate. It does my head in.
Yeah, well, I agree with Elliot. It's all about tribalism. It really is, because if I put myself in that picture, I'm the same. I feel that, and I said this earlier on, Jude Bellingham doesn't get that because he hasn't, and I like Jude Bellingham, right? And I think the reason I like Jude Bellingham because he's not tarnished with a Man United or a Manchester City or a Liverpool or an Arsenal or a Spurs. He's gone from Dortmund, Birmingham to Dortmund, now to Real Madrid. So you kind of like him. But, when Foden does something wrong, you think, oh, look, they don't do that for Man City. He doesn't do that there, And it's the same with Saka, same with all, Harry Kane. I don't like Harry Kane, not because I don't think he's a very good player, because he is, but he's hurt me for every time he's played, and I can't get, now he's had an abysmal tournament. I don't want to get on his back, because at the end of the day, he's Bayern Munich's Harry Kane now. If he was Tottenham's, I'd be right on him, that's how it is. But I also think with Declan Rice, and a lot of people forget about this, on 3 occasions we've had to go and rip up our midfield and take Manu out and put and it's just been Declan Rice in there on his own at times until we've got the goal, and then we go back and rotate and all that. And he's done it very, very well. I think that at the end of the day, the trouble with Declan Rice, and this, you can say this about Foden, you can talk about John Barnes, you can talk about Steven Gerrard, you can talk about Frank Lampard. They have, when they play for England, they don't hit the heights of what they do for their club. And that's been going on for years. Not different managers, different everything, like, you know. And Declan Rice is not playing the same way as he does for Arsenal, because England's not Arsenal. It's a different thing. And I think he's been okay in this tournament, Declan Rice. But if you looked at over these 7 games, he never had a bad game for Arsenal last season. I can't remember him having a bad game for Arsenal when I've turned around and go, oh, I didn't think Declan Rice was good today. I think he done it all through the whole. And do you know what? I don't care. If you ask me what to do, 7 games for England or 38 for Arsenal, I'm having Arsenal every single time. And that is where I'm at. And I'm pretty sure every Manchester City fan is saying that about Foden on their things now, because Foden's not been, in 6.5 games, he didn't play. But for Manchester City in the Premier League, he's been fantastic. So it's not just Declan Rice. You can look at Foden as well. You know, even Saka. Like, I look at Saka, and he's got a little bit of criticism, but the fullback don't help him out one iota. Walker does not help him out one iota in it. Like, you know, when Saka gets the ball, Ben White knows when to hold and not to go for it, and then he knows when to attack. But, you know, all I see all the time was like an express train kept coming down every time. Like, you know, it was like Finsbury Park, you know, with a tube, wasn't it? Like every couple of minutes just going through, like, you know, instead of being holding out, letting him take his man on the side. The one time that he was allowed and had the space, we created the goal for Palmer. So I think there is a little bit. I think there's a little bit of tribalism in everything, like, you know. And it seems funny that everybody's saying Mike Gay is the best player today, you know. And why is that? Because without being disrespectful, no one really has a hatred for Crystal Palace, do they? Like, you know what I mean? So, you know, I thought John Stones played really well, but we're a little bit reluctant to give him the flowers because he's Manchester City, isn't he? We don't like that.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. But Lee, do you worry that? Look, it's no secret that this has been a disappointing tournament. Rice, in the presser before the final, said that playing for England and winning this would have been the greatest day of his life. And this is a big loss for someone that envisaged bringing this home, right? And if we're looking at Saka had to go through what we know he went through at the last Euros. Saka's come through 2 title challenges now where we were on the cusp, but we didn't quite get there. They're strong, but they are young men. Do you worry that, even though we're saying it's tribal, do you worry that the fallout from this Euros could actually bear upon their own confidence and the way in which they attempt to hit the ground running at the beginning of the season? Or do you think that they're well equipped to brush that to one side and come back home and start handling business again?
Do you know what, Shiraz? That's a very, very good point. And I think, like, you know, I think they're more designed now. I think we go back to David Beckham back in the time when he got it, but he got through it and things like that. I think
that was brutal. Even with Beckham, that was brutal.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal, like, you know. And, you know, listen, a lot of John Barnes got ridiculed for poor performances for not doing it for England, like, you know. Actually, like, you know, that without being horrible, people said the best thing he done was the rat for England, like, you know. I mean, that's how bad it got, really, like, you know. So what I would say to that is that I think once they get into the bosom of their club, they'll be all right. I think Saka was and Rice. What will be a hard thing to tell? I think for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks is going to be tough for those guys because they're on holiday. You're thinking about it. You know, to lose it once is bad enough. To lose it twice is a bit of a way on the back of not winning things for Arsenal. So I think it's very, very important going forward now that they start to get over the line on a few things for Arsenal as well. Like, you know, because if you think about Saka's played now 2 finals, and he was, if I'm going to go here, he was an unused sub in the FA Cup, if I remember rightly, or he was on the bench. Yeah. So, you know, he's not contributing to winning things at this moment in time. So you don't want to be put on that sort of thing. Declan Rice won the conference like the other time, so it's a little bit different for him. But I do think that it is a bit of a worry. It is a bit of a worry. Like, I can't believe, like the people are, I know you laugh on Twitter and all that, but they've been quick, very, very quick to attack Declan Rice. Very quick. People have been to attack him, and I think, oh, hold on a minute. Were they quick like that with any other player? And I do wonder why they're quick with, like at the beginning of this tournament, it was like, got a drop sacker. Now all of a sudden it's like Rice, you know what I mean? So I'm just glad Ramsdale didn't get a bloody game, because otherwise it'd have been good.
Yeah, I want to put forward a different theory though. I'd love to know your thoughts on this, Elliot, actually, because I think I might have chatted to Lee about this before. But there's the disappointment of we've lost another final, and then there's the thank you, Mikel. I've longed for a good coach for the last 3 months. It's so good to be back. I feel revitalized. Oh, I know what I missed for the last. There's always that sense of it's good to be home.
Yeah, well, look, if you're a player, you want to go play for managers and in teams that give you a platform to perform your best, right? And I think these players absolutely trust Mikel and absolutely know that with their teammates, they're going to be in a position to look good and to be highly regarded. And they're not going to be put in positions where they start at right wing back and then they play a little bit of right winger and then they play a little bit of left wing back and left back and then right wing again. You're not going to find Bukayo Saka doing that at Arsenal. And Declan Rice, the reason I'm not so worried about his mentality, this is a guy who arrived at Arsenal with £105 million price over his head and immediately just slotted in and started scoring winners against Manchester United in the league, right? You have to have just an unbelievable mentality to hit the ground running, coming from West Ham, going to Arsenal with that price on your head and looking as good as he did. If he can handle that, he can handle this. I wouldn't be too concerned about him. He also just seems very well managed. You know what I mean? Like what he says to the camera, what he says in public, he seems like a guy who just gets it. And it's all very easy for him. Saka, I don't see the same kind of blowback this time, obviously. I mean, it's very different from missing the final penalty in a final versus what he did in this tournament, where I think he sort of got credit outside of the most tribal circles for being one of England's better performers, and he had the goal that got them through. So I think he comes through it fine. I do agree with you. They'll be very happy to come back to a place where they get to play coherent football that makes them look good. I'm much more worried just about the minutes in their legs and getting enough rest to be fresh than I am about them having the mentality to overcome this. And I think I want to be careful how I say this, right? Like, as fans, we care so much, and I don't want to make it sound like the players don't care. They clearly care. The tears at full time are real, but I think that they can compartmentalize it as a profession more than maybe we want to admit they're able to, and they have to, right? Because if they can't, then they'd carry every defeat as heavily as we do, and they'd be a wreck. I think these players will be fine as long as they can get enough rest that they can face what's going to be an even more grueling season.
Yeah, Rice before this match, he did like a half-hour presser, and they were because I think probably the same stat after the final, but certainly before the final, he had covered more distance than anyone else in the tournament, right? So they were asking, how do you do it? And he said, well, in actual fact, I was actually slightly more tired and finding it slightly more difficult at the beginning of the tournament. And the more distance I've covered and the more that I've run, the more that I've grown into it. So he was almost getting back up to that level of match fitness after a very, very small hiatus at the end of the season. So
did you catch this there? Sorry, I was just going to say, because I think there's something to that. Mikel in his most recent interview was talking about why they did this thing in Marbella and why they're having this sort of preseason. And he made a comment, and I don't want to read too much into it, right, because it could have been a throwaway, but about it's so important with what we know about players now that they stay in the rhythm of playing and training. And I think once upon a time, I remember we were like, you have to rotate, you have to rest, they're playing too much. But I think what high performance is teaching us now, and the understanding of high performance athletes, is actually getting them out of their routine is the most dangerous thing for them. And that keeping them in a regular cadence of training at a certain level and playing at a certain level keeps them fitter. So it's just what you were saying with how Rice said he was more tired at the beginning. I kind of get that. And it jives with what I think Mikel was saying, just in terms of keeping players in that routine of staying at that high performance level versus dropping away too much.
Oh, I mean, that makes complete sense, actually. I hadn't actually seen those comments. Maybe I didn't quite take it in the way you were putting it there, but that makes so much sense. I've never, ever, ever played elite sport. So let me just get that to the people getting there. But I played football growing up. And honestly, that first game back, when I've had a bit of rest, I come off the pitch after, I hate myself for 3 days. I can't walk, I can't get out. It's awful. And that's because idiot doesn't stretch. But then the week after that, I feel so much better. It's not the same, but I can imagine it's a similar thing. Like, you don't want your body to just get completely used to just not kicking the ball and not keeping fit and whatever. These players, I reckon, from the day they stop. I mean, that last game against Everton, I don't think they went and just ate burgers and chips for 3 weeks. I think they went off and just thought, right, okay, I'm going to almost do like a season cool down, I'm going to lower my workload and fitness exercise, and then I'm going to build it back up. And like I said, I have no idea how this works. I've never obviously been a physio or put together a training regime, but I completely imagine that would be the right way to do it.
They changed it there because I met a player on holiday. Like he's only like,
here we go. Of course you do.
No. He's a player.
Stephen Gerrard, you might know him. Yeah,
he's a player like in. I won't mention his name, but he was like in the Watford.
Lee was right out of shot from that Odegaard Instagram picture where he was in his swim trunks, just with the 6-pack out. You were just in the background.
What he was saying was that gone are the days now when you just have 6 weeks off and you just go and lay on the beach and all that. Like, they have a program that they have to do during even holiday time. Like, so what it'd be is they have a week off. And then they have to do a schedule, like, so they'd be given like things to do. So they have to like, and so during the day he'd have to go off. His girlfriend would be like laying there, and he'd have to go off and he'd have to go and do a run, or he'd go and do some what. And every single day he was on holiday, he still had to do all this sort of stuff. So they're not completely just shutting down, like, So, but that years ago that never was the case. You know what I mean? Like, you would just go really 6 weeks off and get fined for coming back overweight. You know what I mean? That's how it was.
Right, science evolves, the research evolves. But I mean, look, there's rest, there's recovery, there's rotation. But there is another way of keeping your squad and your team fresh, and that's buying players. So we have been linked. We have been linked with a certain Mr. Merino, another handsome Mikel.
It's a world-class segue. Is no one gonna reference that? Just fantastic.
Yeah, well, this is why he's here. That's why they call him Sharoy. But I just call him Sharoy.
I'll tell you, there were a few comments on the last podcast saying, "Look, is he a co-host or is he just a guest?" Like, look, we're early. We're new to this. We're not hosting experts like Elliot, all of us, and we're getting there. But Sharoy, that was amazing. Like, take it away, please, because we need to talk about.
I was actually going to come back to you because I saw you did a video on AFTV. So I think you were comparing him to Eze for a particular role, right? And there were certain things that you delved into that were particularly interesting to me. And where do you see him playing? One. And who do you see him really stepping into that starting 11 for? But two, do you see him as a first 11 level raiser for us? Or is he something that our squad needs, but the first 11 doesn't necessarily require?
Okay, these are 3 great questions. So I'm actually going to answer them all really punchily, really quickly. So let me just firstly say, on that video I did for AFTV where I compared Eze and Merino, do you guys ever get comments either under a tweet or a video or a podcast, and immediately you go, yeah, you didn't watch the content? Like, all the time. People going, Marino's nothing like Eze. Why are you comparing? I'm like, I know. Well, that's my point. We've been heavily linked with both. And I just feel like this whole Smith Rowe out, Fulham we know now, have made a bid, Palace are invested. I think if that happens, Eze comes in. I can't help if that's quite light for like in the way Arteta might use them, but maybe a conversation for another day if that develops. My thing with Merino is, in Eze, you're adding a second 10 with Odegaard, who's really an advanced 8, whatever, all the technical terms. And you could see them both going and thriving with Rice behind. With Merino, I feel like he's honestly found Xhaka 2.0. Like, the way his kind of 6'2" frame, he's not massive, but he's tall, uses physicality. His numbers for duels, aerial duels, are all fantastic, as you'd expect, because otherwise they're never going to play for Arteta. He's left-footed, and he plays in the exact same areas Xhaka did. I mean, watching comps on him, because I don't watch him every week, but I've known about this player for a while. that underlap he does, very Xhaka from that 22-23 season. I think you asked whether he's like basically massively improves the team or the squad. I believe any competent number 8 lifts this league.
God, that's where you think we are.
A bunch of 6s and a bunch of 10s. Please sign an 8, Mikel. Do you remember we were here with Jess, weren't we? Big up Jess. She knows Arsenal. Go subscribe. She was saying like, Mikel, I know you like people with a great personality, but can they also just be an 8? And I think that's where we are. Elliot, where were you with the Merino stuff? Because obviously he looks good. Obviously, they have to be a good player, and I'm being a bit hyperbolic. But the fact that he looks a very accomplished Champions League player who is playing significant minutes for Spain, although maybe not a starter, and he fits in a way that I've seen a very recent Arsenal player fit in brilliantly before. I feel like while he's not the most exciting signing in the world, I do think he raises us potentially.
Okay, so you know how Jose Mourinho once said people who don't understand football analyze with stats? That's me. I'm that guy. I don't understand football, so I analyze with stats. So I just want to say this, right? I have two perspectives on this transfer. And the first thing is, I do think that there's a desire, because we trust Mikel now and we believe if Mikel's interested, it must be a good player, that we start to look for the reasons. But we should be cognizant of the fact that this is a 28-year-old player who's been plying his trade at Real Sociedad for 6 seasons. He was in the Premier League at 22. It didn't work out for him at that time. That we are a team trying to exceed 90 points in the Premier League. And I think especially in the midfield, if you're not at the absolute elite level, it's not that you won't play a lot. It's that you can't play at all. Look at City. City signed Calvin Phillips. He didn't play some he didn't play at all. Matthias Nunez, he didn't play at all. And so I think you have to be careful about what we really think the level is to play regularly in midfield. And so the thing with Merino, because I'll take your point, for example, about the Xhaka comparison. Granit Xhaka last season completed 91% of his passes and made 12 progressive passes a game. Mikel Merino is a career 75% passer who makes about 5 progressive passes a game. So right there, I say to you, can you see a guy who for his whole career has been about a 75% passer being a regular midfield player in a Mikel Arteta possession-oriented midfield? I'm not saying he can't. By the way, let's not. The thing I hate is sometimes people will put a stat out as if they're settling the argument. I am not settling the argument. I think these are things that we have to be aware of. I see him in a different light. Mikel bought Khan, presumably to play left 8. I think we believe that was the original plan.
It was.
And if he sees the left 8 as a box crasher, a late arriver, an off-the-ball player, a guy who can win in the air, then Merino actually makes sense. Not there to pass the ball a ton, not there to be an integral part of build-up, but to get in the box, win headers, win duels, be a pressing monster. I actually can see that. I just don't see that as a player who can play 2,500 minutes in a 90, 92, 95-point Arsenal, because I don't think the passing level is there. And the thing I worry about with Rice, we've just covered this. I love Rice having a primary ball progressor with him. If Merino can work at 8, I'd love it. I cannot see him working at 6, at the base of our midfield where he has to be the primary ball progressor. So there's some alchemy here. If you told me we got a great midfielder who can progress the ball, and Merino, who can be a physical addition and a box presence in one of those 8 roles. He knows Odegaard from when they were at Sociedad together. Mikel obviously knows him. I really like that. Take an El Neni out of the squad, take a Sambi out of the squad, and get someone in who's got real experience and bite.
100%.
So I think there's a there, but it feels more floor raising than ceiling raising, if that makes sense.
I agree with that.
Hopefully I haven't trashed him there. I'm not trying to trash him. He's clearly a talented player, but let's be real about what the qualities are that he possesses and how he might fit in. That's all.
No, I completely agree. Lee, look, I mean, we've extended with Jorginho. There are inevitably rumours around Thomas Partey's future, and there are a lot of people that ultimately, even if there isn't an offer for Thomas Partey, there are people that are saying, well, we simply cannot trust his injury record. So what do we do about him? Let's say, hypothetically, Partey goes and Merino is our only midfield addition. Well, I mean, how do you see this window? And what's your confidence level like in terms of the midfield going into next season? Because that personally would concern me, if I'm being honest with you.
That would be a shocker, an absolute shocker. And I'll tell you what, I'll be knocking on their door wanting some money back from my season ticket, because at the end of the day, the season tickets have gone.
Tell us how you really feel, mate.
No, but I agree with what Elliot's saying. Bringing in Merino is an upgrade on El Nini. That's how I'm looking at it. That's how to so you've got someone to rely on. I'm looking for Arsenal to go in big for Thomas Partey. I think Declan Rice is our 8. I really do, with Thomas Partey in there. But we know that Thomas Partey is not reliable. So if Thomas Partey is, what I want is someone going into Thomas Partey's role, and if he's not, needs to be rotated, Thomas Partey comes in there, there's no drop-off. And it's the same there, like Merino can play in and give Declan Rice a break, because these guys are going to need a bit of a break at some stage. Don't forget that they had a winter break last season, which really did help us. There's no winter break this season. There's no winter break, so they're going to go straight in it all the way through. They're going to have an extra 4 games in the Champions League. Hopefully, they're going to have more games in the cups. Also, what we have to take into factor for here, someone like Saliba, who was being rested when on international weeks, is now going to be playing in the national game. So it's all of these things are going to count into it, and you need to have a big and strong enough squad. I expect Arsenal, and I'd be very, very disappointed if they don't go for a top player in that 6 holding. Now I don't know who that is
this summer.
Huh?
This summer.
I don't care. I don't know who it is. I expect to see that by the end of this transfer window.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I worry that you're going to be disappointed. I do worry that you're going to.
So do I. But Elliot, you really agree with that too.
I don't know how we do without it. I mean, let's say Partey goes, just for argument's sake. Here's our midfield: Rice, Odegaard, Jorginho. That's our midfield. If you want to put Kai and Vieira in there, be my guest. But it's Rice, Odegaard, and Jorginho, and with more games than last season.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I don't see it as it's a non-negotiable, to use Mikel's words, because even if you like Merino, and even if you think I'm lower on him than I should be, he's not a 6, he's an 8. That's where he's played. I mean, I don't see the argument for him as a 6. So you're talking about Declan Rice and Jorginho playing the entire season in the deepest part of midfield. Maybe there's a creative component here that we just don't see. Maybe Calafiori's going to come in and Timber will be a midfielder, or Zinchenko will be converted to midfield. I mean, there are creative solutions, but I don't think you get past Manchester City converting fullbacks to midfielders and being creative. I think you go to the market and you strengthen where you're weak. So I think we have to. I'm with Lee here. I think that feels like an area where we could be perilously weak if something were to go wrong.
But that's fascinating, because I think the 6th position, I know the Partey thing is hanging in the balance. Like, if he goes, it feels we've got to address it. But at the moment, he doesn't look near leaving. So I think, we're a week away from them flying to the US. I know you'll be there. Well, yeah, you'll be there, Elliot. I know Lee. Obviously, we're going out there.
Halfway there already.
But yeah, actually, you've got a big event happening out there, so we'll make sure to tell everyone about that. Yeah. But I feel like with Jorginho and Partey, you've got your deep-lying playmakers, your progressors of the ball, and Rice can play with them, or you can play Rice in the 6, and we know that Odegaard's role changes slightly when you need a little bit more, because maybe Jorginho's not there or Zinchenko's not inverting. The reason I like the Merino profile is because I actually think we lack a bit of physicality in there, which is crazy, because Partey's 6'1" and Rice is a physical monster. But Partey you can't trust to be fit. And I feel like if Partey's out, then basically it's Rice and you're just shoehorning someone into the 8 at the moment, or it's Rice and Jorginho, but then you're asking Jorginho to play every game. I think we need physicality more than we need ball progressors at the moment in the squad a little bit.
I agree with you, James, but I
might slide a little bit with a Merino and a left 8. I don't know. Maybe I'm being ambitious. Timber might add something. I don't know.
I'll be honest.
Can I just... Sorry, yeah, go.
I was just going to say, if Thomas Partey was playing for the full season last season, Arsenal would have won the league. That's how important that role is.
Yeah, but my point with that is it's now borderline negligent to assume that he's going to play the full season.
No, he's not. That's why. On that assumption,
even if he stays.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Because I think I probably have a different perspective on this than maybe a lot of people. I know we won the games, and I understand that's the point of football. But I actually feel that when Thomas Partey came back into the team for the last 5 games, I don't think we looked like the Arsenal we had been. I think we lost a little bit of our pressing intensity. I think he realizes his race is run athletically. And whereas Jorginho solves that by reading the game early and jumping ahead to intercept and stay high, Partey drops away. And I think you saw it in the United game where we should have totally dominated that midfield, but he drops away. And I think his instinct to drop away now as a compensation for a lack of athleticism really hurts our pressing and our ability to control the pitch the way we did before he played. So I know we won games, and I don't want to. I want to be careful, right? Because the goal of football is to win. But I saw a very different Arsenal when Partey came back. And if that's the Partey we're going to get, a physically diminished Partey who doesn't trust his athleticism and won't stay high, like when we're off out of possession. I don't know, James. I don't know if you saw it differently, but that's a worry for me because we already know he's an injury risk. If his athleticism is gone and he's going to play differently, that's not going to work. You know.
I agree. I saw the games he played. I thought he was very good against Chelsea. We won 5-0.
That was good.
But I wasn't blown away at all by his performances. I think we'd have done probably the same with Jorginho in there, who I thought was outstanding for a lot of 2024, playing alongside Rice. I do think in the North London derby, you saw what Partey can do. For sure, there were moments. I thought the Chelsea game was brilliant, but yeah, it wasn't.
The Chelsea game, though, can I be honest? Wasn't it kind of basketball? Like a little bit? I know we got the goals and they blew it, but that's what I'm talking about. Even the Spurs game, especially the second half of the derby, but it was won by them, so I take that with a grain of salt. But the games were much more basketball than I think Mikel wanted them to be. You know,
putting that into context, though, maybe I'm being too kind, but this is a team going into the last 5 or 6 games in a title running when there's a point or two between them and City. This is a Thomas Partey who's been out for the vast majority of the season, coming into really high, intense crunch games against Chelsea, against Manchester United. I mean, these are crunch games at any moment of the season, right? Let alone in a run-in. So maybe I attributed the fact that Partey wasn't 10 out of 10 to that. But only time will tell, because now he's going to have a full pre-season. You know, fingers crossed. If he stays fit, because I can't have another season of him taking that wage with sitting on the bench. And hopefully he hits the ground running. But look, I'm with everyone on this. When I heard the links to Merino, and I saw that he's got 1 year left on his contract, so even though the release clause is relatively hefty, you should be able to get a slightly better deal and I reckon you could probably bring him in for something closer to maybe 35, as opposed to that release clause. I just thought that's shrewd, astute business from a recruitment team that has obviously got a character reference from someone at Sociedad or from Odegaard himself. Has seen that this is a guy with international pedigree, a bit of experience, physical attributes that definitely match what Arteta wants, and someone who can absolutely do a job for the squad. But from the beginning of this window, I've said I want a level raiser in there. I don't want someone.
I mean, is that Bruno Guimaraes? Because that to me is the difference, right? Don't go cheap, go all the way and get the guy that can do it all.
But I'm playing devil's advocate here. But we all want a big striker too. We all want a big gunman in front of a goal. If we're talking about Merino perhaps not being the level raiser, and you're looking at someone like a Bruno, well, pay us 100 mil, you might get him. But then the caliber of 9 that a lot of us want would perhaps be the same. I'm not saying it's unrealistic. And if I'm being honest with you, with the amount that I think we could get from player sales and the amount this club generates, I think we could. This might sound ridiculous. I might get laughed at in the comments, but I do think we could. It's well within our financial power to bring in an 85 and a 95 million pound player, for example, in the same window. I think that's perfectly doable if we're smart with our business. I'm just saying that I was surprised when we spent 105 million on one. I don't know if we're then in the next year going to do a similar thing on 2. That maybe I need to change my mentality, and I'm too used to getting let down in these windows. Maybe I need to start looking at us as, well, actually, no, we're gonna bully the market now.
Elliot makes a great point. Sure, Elliot makes a great point. We need 2 more points. We need to get over the 90 barrier. That's what we do now. I think at the end of the day, if you look at our goals at this moment in time, well, they're right up there. They're high. Martinelli not at his best. If Martinelli can get back to somewhere near his best, that might increase. So I don't think it is that important that striker. That's my opinion. For me,
I'll come back on that. Finish your point, but I will come back on that because I've had that level.
Now is that this central midfield player we've got to match and better Manchester City in that area. We're not going to match them better what they've got in Haaland, but we can match them better in their defence and match them better in their midfield. And I just think that if it's me, we've got £100 million, right? I think it's a gamble looking at certain strikers, right? I don't think it's a gamble if you went and got Bruno Gimenez. I think that if you went and got him, I think that will be the player, him and Rice, Odegaard, that will get us up to those 90 points. That's my opinion.
I'm not going to sit here and disagree with that. But every time I mention a striker, there is often someone that says, "Well, we scored loads of goals. What are you worrying about?" But you also refer to the 2 points. So I'm looking at where we've dropped points. Now, we dropped points against Aston Villa twice when it's not really a question of the amount of goals. It's the amount of chances that we created and the amount of goals that we didn't score in those games. So this is where I'm talking about a clinician. This is where I'm talking about absolute ratio, absolute chance conversion. I'm not saying that I necessarily want a 9 to come in so that we score 30 more goals a season. I'm saying that I want a proven striker to come in so that when we get those games and the wingers are misfiring, you have someone whose only job is to put the ball in the back of the net, and we do not have one of those in our team right now. And I think that was the margin. That's my worry, and I think that's where we actually fell short. So I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying about the midfield at all, but I do think that is integral.
Can I be honest with you? I actually agree that the area where we can improve is our consistency in attack, ironically. That there were too many games where we struggled to break teams down, especially low blocks. I think you have to be somewhat cognizant of the fact that we spent a good chunk of the beginning of the season playing Eddie Nketiah as our striker, which with the best will in the world to an academy player. I think we agree probably not at the level that we needed in that space, and it took some time to understand that Kai was going to become our 9, and once he did, I think we were much more consistently able to break teams down. I think to Lee's point, we all probably think Martinelli will be better this season. I'll get a lot of eye rolls saying this, but if he's healthy, Gabriel Jesus is 27. Like, there's no reason to think he can't go more to the role that he had at City, where he is an impact wide / central player who can come in, and play any of the 3 positions across the front 3 when needed. So I think that there's enough there. If I said to you, game for your life, you have to pick an Arsenal lineup out of the players we have right now. Okay? You can pick a hell of a front 3 and a phenomenal back 4. But your midfield 3 probably includes Rice, Odegaard, and Jorginho. And just saying that to me, and that's our best case, right? If one of them is missing, it gets weaker from there. I don't know if a 28-year-old player from Sociedad is the fix. Is he a good addition? Sure, but I look at that midfield area, and having just seen for England, by the way, how much you can derail yourself if you don't have the right profiles in midfield. That just feels like the place where I can't envision a strong enough group to go, and I'm talking win the Champions League, win the Premier League, the things we really can do from the platform we're on now, from the place we are now. So can I say one last thing though, guys? Because I want to be careful because it can sound like whining. We're so good now. Did any of us think 4 or 5 seasons ago we'd be where we are now? Talking about trying to get to 91 or 92 points and win the Champions League? Like, we're in a beautiful place. But I think that has led us to forget how hard it is to go a level up from here. Going from 4th to 2nd is hard. But going from 2nd to past City, as Liverpool found, it's nigh on impossible. And so it's not going to be easy, and there may be no way to do it. I just don't want to sound like complaining. We're very, very good. It's just going to be really hard to get the talent that can elevate us from where we are now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. By the way, this has been one of my favorite discussions. It's a very young podcast, but just this particular topic really given me some interesting perspective on the Merino stuff. So really enjoy it. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, everyone. What do you all make of the Merino links? I'm going to just round off this topic before we've got 2 more things to cover super quickly in the last 15 minutes. But I just want to ask, with a show of hands, 2 questions. 30 million, Merino comes in. Are you happy? 3, 2, 1. Okay.
I don't get anything else though. Just that.
No, I'm assuming.
Yeah. What was that, Shuri?
No, I'm saying. I'm assuming it wasn't just him coming in midfield.
No. Just like
Okay, then I'll get in there.
Okay, and final one actually, and really again we could do a whole other podcast on this, but we're talking about a level raiser, those getting to 90 plus. Eze as a midfielder, show of hands, is he the guy that could do that 3-2-1
as a midfielder?
Left 8.
I think
Left eight,
I think wide forward. I think wide forward.
wide forward.
Why not?
Let's see.
Sure.
We'll have a big discussion as on this podcast. If at the moment it's just links. There's Reece Claus and Arsenal are interested. If things pick up, like we'll have a discussion around Eze because.
By the way, we're doing our full Merino scouting video tomorrow, so I reserve the right to come back on this podcast and retract everything I said and just completely change my mind.
You are welcome whenever, honestly. Trust me. We mean not wanting to bother you too much, but if you want to jump back on and change your mind on it.
Just if I embarrass myself, that's all. Yeah.
Oh, no, I mean, my favourite midfield ever in the Premier League, and this is obviously away from the great Arsenal midfields. I'm just talking of great clubs that I've watched lift trophies that I wish we were lifting. It was De Bruyne, Fernandinho, David Silva. And taking 2 10s and going with putting either side of a Fernandinho. If Arteta somehow can bring that back together, I think Ødegaard can do that. I think Rice can do that. But it's about that third player. I don't think Havertz was ever the guy for it. Vieira, I don't think quite has enough for that, though I think Vieira will have his part to play in the squad. I think if he can get that, but Arteta's tried things with Smith Rowe, hasn't always worked. Like I said, 15 to go. Let's touch in on a couple things. We'll start with pre-season. We'll look to what Arteta said. The last 2 topics of every podcast are always the sort of quick fire, give your thoughts on these sort of last bits of news. But pre-season is official. It's upon us. Like, it started this week. You know, the players are back at London Colney. Great to see Jesus there, Timber. I have a feeling Calafiori will be through the door by the end of this week, because if they're going to get that deal done, I would think before tour is when they definitely want to do that. Let's hope so. I'm very excited about that one. I want to know what everyone's expectations are for pre-season. And I know it's such a silly question because it's play well, sign players, but we got 3 good tests: Bournemouth, United, Liverpool, Leverkusen, then in London at the Emirates, followed by Lyon, I think. They're into the season. I feel like there's no joke pre-season games in there. And Arteta has to do it with a pretty depleted squad already. Lee, we're flying out there.
Yeah.
Very lucky to be going with AFTV. Really excited about that.
You're sharing a room.
When we're there, we're in the ground. What are you looking for? Are you looking for ideas tactically? Are you looking at the players to look fit? Does beating Man United and Liverpool matter too much? Signings wise, where are you? How desperate are you getting for those to come in? That kind of stuff. Where are you with it all?
Yeah, this time not really anywhere near it. I think the last 2 tours of America, Orlando and the last one, I've come away from those tours thinking Arsenal are ready. They're ready to go. I've really impressed them. They're not going to be ready to go in these tours. This tour, there's no way that they're going to be, because if you look at it, there's going to be no. Saliba's not going to be on this tour, and he was like unbelievable when I first seen that. It was that when I went to America and Nuremberg and see him, I knew that we had this player, and I was excited. None of the new signings are going to be like the main signs. Declan Rice was on the tour last time. I think Declan Rice apparently signed today this time last year. So they're not going to be there. Saka's not going to be there. 4 or 5, I don't even think probably the 2 Brazilian boys will be there as well. So I think that the pre-season for me now, where it hasn't been in the past, where it's been America, it's been the Emirates Cup. I think that's when it becomes very, very important. But for this one now, it's just it's a little bit of a PR thing. I'm very, very surprised by it that they've gone Bournemouth, Liverpool, and Manchester United. I thought with the games that they've got, very, very strong. Again, how things have changed years ago. You'd never play against a Premier League side in a pre-season. Now you do. So I just think it's about PR, getting fit, seeing But don't forget, there's still these tours are still very, very important to the Martin Odegaards, the player. Timber, massively important for him to get up and run. Ben White, all of those guys. I don't know who's in goal. Have we got a goalkeeper yet sorted out? Because both of our goalkeepers.
I was talking about this. Well, I think I was talking to you two about this earlier today. I think our goalkeepers, and this is my prediction I'm putting out there, and actually this podcast is coming out on the Wednesday. What's that? Yeah, Lee Judges getting some minutes in another skills challenge. No, I honestly, my prediction for the goalkeeper for Tor is Carl Hine. I think we'll have Dan Bentley through the door, and I think Tommy Setford will go as well, the 18-year-old who just signed. I think they'll take the number 3's already there. The youngster they've just signed from Ajax is very highly rated apparently, and I think they'll get the Dan Bentley deal done quite swiftly. And those will probably be the 3. So bold prediction, like I said, we're recording this Monday night. It's actually coming out on the Wednesday, not on the Tuesdays. Apologies, people. I know it's a day later than usual. But yeah, I don't think our goalkeeper, Raya's going to be away. But I do think Raya will start the season. Like, he barely played for Spain, let's be real. To take your 3 weeks, although you do need pre-season. Maybe I'm being really naive saying that. What are you expecting, Elliot, from this tour?
Well, first of all, Lee cannot play keeper for Arsenal, clearly. That's silly, because he's never played for Naki County. So that disqualifies him right there.
That is very true. You're not a client of his. I'm sorry. You're not. If he's not got your number, you're not playing for him.
Oh, well.
But all kidding aside, I think for preseason, like, first of all, I'll just be on the record here. I don't care what the result is of any of these games. Like, I don't. And I don't think the manager should care. I mean, we all remember Arsenal losing to United at MetLife, and Eric Ten Hag giving it big with the "we don't play friendlies," and we know how that all worked out for us and for them. So I'm not too worried about results. I think there's a couple players, though, it's a really important preseason for. Timber is an obvious one in my mind. We're all very excited about Timber, but he's still sort of a theoretical player. Does he look fit? Does he look fresh? Does he look ready to go? Can he start the season for us? What's his role? Is Mikel going to use him off the right? Is he going to use him off the left? Does he have some hybrid midfield role? Really curious to see that. And as we get deeper into preseason, is he being picked as the starting guy? Because we don't know. I think it's a big, big preseason for Gabriel Jesus. Everybody's written him off, and I can totally understand why. He has not delivered on those first couple of months, but he had a major knee injury. He came back way too soon to try to help us win a title. He had fluid on his knee to start last season, and he's never been right. Now, I could be wrong, and he could be washed, and the knee could be complete, just sawdust at this point. But if he comes back and he looks fit and he looks bright, that really will change, in my mind, I think, how that whole attacking platoon looks for me in terms of depth and capability. So those would be 2 I'll really have my eye on. How does he look? And maybe an outside possibility, Fabio Vieira.
Yeah.
I think he's a talented player who it just hasn't happened. It hasn't happened for him. Injuries have been a big part of that. But if Fabio Vieira is any good at all, having that as a backup to Odegaard in the occasional left 8 role would be really handy, especially, in terms of maybe adding some goals, because I think he can score. So those three need to have a big preseason. If they do, I think it makes the squad look a lot stronger. If they don't, I think it creates some question marks that will have me a little concerned about our depth going into the season.
And I think we could also maybe look at Thomas Partey, going back to your earlier concerns, Elliot, about what's his athleticism like. I mean, this is now, hopefully with the full preseason, we get a bit more of an indication as to what's going on there. I mean, we said we were going to touch on this Arteta interview. He did mention, I don't know whether it was an error or whether he simply sort of meandered along in the conversation, but in the interview that he released on the Arsenal YouTube channel today, he mentioned that there are 4 groups of players, right? He said, we have one group that has been with us throughout. We've had one group that has had friendlies. And he was just about to go into groups 3 and groups 4. And I thought we'd get some sort of indication as to who is going to come back when. But he doesn't answer that question. And he then moves on and says, well, we're going to the US, we're going to London. But that's why I think preseason is particularly important this year. I can't remember in the last 2 years, maybe 3, where I've looked at, 2 years definitely, where I've looked at the first 5 games and thought, fuck me, these could be some serious games where people could draw some serious conclusions. And I completely understand the fact that
I look at every fixture that way, just so we're clear. I see every fixture and I'm like, fuck me, that's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard.
I know James, I've been on many watch-alongs with James. I know James absolutely looks at every match like that.
3-0 up with 10 minutes to go. I'm there.
But that's why I do place. Look, I've got a personal vendetta against United. Growing up in the part of London that I grew up in, mate, you're surrounded by United fans, so I want to beat them regardless. I don't want to lose that preseason game, but I'm looking at jumping into the season with momentum. Lee quite rightly said that not only was there a level of euphoria, particularly in the season when we brought in Zinchenko and Jesus. I think Zinchenko we actually signed whilst we were out in the States that year, right?
Vibes that summer, can I say?
Yeah.
Like that whole from the preseason tour, Baltimore, Orlando, through to pretty much the World Cup.
Didn't we 7-0 Seville?
Times I've ever had as an Arsenal fan. Yeah. It was just vibes. The Saliba song, these players challenging for the title. What was it? We dropped 5 points in that whole run up to the World Cup.
Smashed Chelsea out in Orlando. Do you remember that? We absolutely smashed Chelsea, and that's when we thought we've got a team.
Yeah. Sorry, I Roy.
No, and I remember, I think Sevilla came to us and we put 7 past them.
Yeah, Emirates Cup.
It was incredible, but that did ultimately translate into a record start to the season, right? So that there is a lot to be said.
I think there's one thing we should bear in mind, and I think this is really important, right? You go back 2 summers ago, and that's an Arsenal still trying to build its identity. And we weren't really sure what we were yet. Right. And we thought we could be a top 4 contender, and we were starting to develop an identity. The identity really coalesced that season. And then this past season, we just sort of fine tuned it to a new level. This team knows what it is now, knows how it plays. It knows how it plays in possession, out of possession, in transition, pressing the ball. The players really understand their rotations and where to be. And so I think it can be more of a fitness exercise, whereas 2 summers ago, it was kind of an exercise in getting everybody on the boat, getting everybody on board and understanding who we were. One player that we haven't mentioned, though, am I overthinking this, or could this be an important preseason or an exciting preseason for someone like Ethan Nwaneri? Everybody's wondering if there's a pathway for the academy, the next generation of academy players. I don't know if any of them are good enough, but I think if one is, it might be Nwaneri. And I wonder if, we want to keep these guys at the club, by the way. We're seeing now that that's getting to be a more competitive space, and clubs are poaching academy talent more than they used to. Germany, because they can get these contracts earlier, are poaching talent. So is Nwaneri a guy that we should maybe be looking out for to make a splash in preseason?
He has to go. We were touching on this actually in the last pod, and whether the academy is serving its purpose in terms of not only players being retained and eventually graduating to the first team, but if you are going to sell them, do you get adequate value? I mean, last preseason, I think we had Roel Walters there, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, he got a bit of game time as well, right? But we've all seen what's happened since. And Nwaneri, he's a very coveted player, and I believe that even City were in for his signature not too long ago, right? So if you are going to retain someone like him, this is as good a chance as any. You're talking about so many first teamers who aren't going to have the opportunity to be ready in time for this. Whether that translates into him actually being on the bench when the season starts, that remains to be seen. But I think you can do both. I think you can use preseason for both and still make it valuable.
Lee, were you going to?
I was surprised he was on the bench in the Boreham Wood game on Saturday. Come on in the second half, scored. I thought he would have been left out of that to go on to the main tour. He still might go on the main tour, I don't know, but it did seem surprising that he was involved in that.
Or was he left out because he's not academy anymore? Is that a way to look?
Well, he played. He came on.
He came on and scored.
Yeah, but I know. But even still, I think, is there a sense of like, look, we don't actually have him because he's going to be more of the first team. Maybe I'm really overthinking. He's still 17, and it's going to be 17 till March, I think it is. But I wonder with that. I mean, I keep thinking it's not that much a coincidence that Nwaneri can play on the right. We're not really linked like we thought we'd be to loads of right wingers, and the closest we've been semi-significantly linked to in terms of a winger is Eze, who can also play in midfield. I just feel like anyone we bring in, like an Eze, who could add to the front three, is also able to play in midfield, because that means there's also path for Nwaneri. But maybe I'm overthinking it. I think it's so hard to guess what Mikel Arteta is doing. And actually, you touched that interview. I just want to end by just putting this quote to you. It's my favourite quote from the interview he did with Arsenal. If you haven't watched, everyone go onto the Arsenal YouTube channel and give it a watch. He says, for me, the best thing is when they come here on the first day, and when they look at us, when they see the attitude, when they see the preparation, when they hear the words that we are using to start the preparation for this season, when they go, wow, this is going up a level again. So what we did last season is not going to be enough. It's just him saying, like, they come in, the players, and they go, everything's just gone up another level. And I don't know if he means tactical evolution of the team, intensity of the fitness, the demands. Were they walk in last season being told, we think we can win the Premier League? Now they're walking with, we don't want you to just win it. We want you to win it with 95 points. And by the way, we expect a Champions League final. Like, I don't know how that presents itself. But clearly, like every year, Arteta is building and building and building, and now we hear about these phases. It's another level now, which is why when we were signing Calafiori, or looking like we're trying to sign Calafiori, and people say to me, but what about Timber? I'm like, well, you think Timber can't battle it out with Calafiori or White? Because that's the next level, everyone. Here he come. So,
and it's also interesting.
I think the interesting thing is there's a culture where people think you have to win the transfer window to win the Premier League. And the transfer window has become its own competition. And I think that rots our brains at some level. If we don't make a single signing this summer, not one, we should go for 90 points again. Because we're still really damn good, and Timber's back, and Martinelli will be better, and Jesus is fit, and all the guys who were good last season should be good again, right? So this idea that you have to win the transfer window to be good, we're good already. And that's why I think we might slightly disagree about where we need to strengthen, because I look at where could this thing fall apart? Because is Saliba going to play every minute of the Premier League again? Can Jorginho hold up at this age under the pressure? So I want to steelman what we have, because what we have is already the foundations of a fantastic team that should do really well again.
Absolutely, but I don't think you can rest on the laurels of last season, in that you do have to prepare for the eventuality the teams around you are going to strengthen and improve, which makes it slightly more difficult to get to the 90 point mark. Well, yeah, that, and also, I mean, it's kind of like the confidence and the belief that we've built up. I'm not going to talk about the team for a minute because I can't quite speak to the psyche of an elite sportsman. But the belief within the fan base is sort of like when you go to the gym. It takes you years to go to the gym and get into shape. But if you fall off for just a month, that belief and strength does zap out of you a bit, right? And that is sometimes how I feel about football fans, where things can be fantastic for a season and a half, 2 seasons. You have one bad month, and there is a sort of sense of calamity within a fan base, and that ultimately comes with its own problems, right? But
it also goes the other way, though. You can be terrible and then unearth Cobb Mainu and think that everything looks amazing again. Do you know what I mean? Like, it can go both ways. Trust me, I've done that as an Arsenal fan as well. But look, we've hit the hour mark. Lee, Elliot, you've been absolutely fantastic. Sharoy, amazing co-host. Round reports for everyone. We are this time next week. We want to get a podcast to you somehow. We will. We'll be out in the States as well. Elliot, you got a great event going on there, and I want everyone to hear about it. And they will anyway. They've heard about it. But go ahead and just tell everyone what you're up to.
You put me in an awkward position because it's sold out, so I don't have anything to offer. Really. We're doing a big live show at the Cosm Center in LA, and there'll be lots of fun stuff going on there. Unfortunately, as of right now, it is sold out. We're looking at maybe having an additional offering of tickets that we're working on, but as of right now, I got nothing to offer other than I hope some people watching get a chance to be there.
Well, there we go.
And if you guys want to be there, we'd love to see you there.
Yeah, I'd absolutely love to. We're figuring out all our plans, and of course, it would be amazing to be. It's with Arscast, am I right?
Yeah, with James Nander from the Arscast, and Clive will be out there from our shows. The real star, obviously not me. So everybody come see him.
Honestly, you're all fantastic and inspire a lot of what we do. Of course, everyone, go check out Arsenal Vision podcast. Elliot, go follow Elliot is it at Yankee Gunner, am I right?
Yeah, I wouldn't do that, but if you want to, you can. I always suggest you block me there. It's for everybody's best. But,
well, if you want to see a bit of Man United slander, it's a great place for it.
You will get that.
Yeah, very, very true. But yeah, you'll be out on tour. We look forward to seeing you there. Lee, Mr. Lee Judges TV, everyone, go and subscribe. Lee, you've had to have an extra hour of me. It wasn't that bad, was it?
It was fantastic. It was really enjoyable. And my night's sleep is going to get a lot easier now. So I thank you very much.
Well, I haven't given you a tactical insight to watch for months, so I just don't know how you slept. So good on you. Sharoy, mate, class act as always. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, come on. Far too kind, man. I'm looking forward to this Goonerverse rebrand, my friend. I know you've got a lot of exciting things in the pipeline. I'm not just a contributor on the channel, but I'm a big fan too, man. Keep going.
Oh, it's it. Everyone, amazing as always. Go subscribe to all the channels, listen to all the podcasts. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. I think that's, we get great people I often really agree with, but a really insightful debate around Merino there, helping me see it in a different way. I'd love to know everyone's thoughts in the comment section below. And like you said, there's a scouting pod you're doing as well, Elliot, so everyone go check that out. Big thanks, everyone. And we will see you next week. I'm not quite sure what day, but there'll be something. Catch you all in a bit. Really hope you've enjoyed another episode of the Goonerverse podcast with Arsenal fans from around the Arsenal world giving their amazing thoughts. A big thanks to our guest today. If you do want to follow this podcast on the go, you can. It's available on podcast platforms as well. Join us next week where we'll get more Arsenal fans to talk all things Arsenal. A big thank you again.